So the big question, yes, a new segment on your box seat, and we're going to highlight industry discussion points, if you like. So this week's big question, well, it surrounds the start point at Addington Raceway for the mile. Is it fair? Of course, we know it starts on the bend at around the 400 metre mark. So we're here to discuss the positives and the negatives, if there are. Michael Guerin, as we come back to you and talk about the overlay we're going to show you now, the starting point, significant of course, not anywhere in the world do we know of a start point that is similar. The United video unfolds, and well, if you're drawn wide on the track, it's not an easy task.
No, Grego. I'll be honest, I'll be completely honest. Let's get the emotion out of the way. I hate it. I hate the milestone start point. But emotion doesn't pay the bills. As we see Willow kicking clear here. Good enough to overcome barrier 4 as it was, outside of the front line, but she's got panels on these. She probably should have overcome it, so small field helped. Lots of positives there, Greg. See, the emotion tells me I don't like it. But I know you've spoken to the Addington boys, and the turnover for the only race that really matters, which is the New Zealand free-for-all, hasn't been too bad. I'll go to the whale first of all, Craig. When you're backing in a mile race, and obviously you're a man who loves the punt and knows a lot about it, when you're backing in a mile race at Addington, do you automatically or mostly discount the horses drawn wide?
To be honest, Mick, I'm totally against backing in these races. I think I had a bet in the free-for-all and didn't have a bet on the 2 on the mile on the weekend, so I'll be bluntly honest, I hate the mile start. Better's confidence is the thing, Mick. I mean, if you're drawing 3 or wider, you're basically out of the market. I don't care how good you are. You'll have slugs drawing barriers 1 and 2, and they'll lead up. 9 times out of 10, they'll dominate the race. And it'll take a very good horse to get home from back in the field. Now, people will say, hey, Vice Chairman did it last week in 151, a fantastic time, but he's a pretty good horse. And you had Tiger Tara drawn 3 the second row, or 1 the second row, ending up 3 back, and the race was nearly all over by the time he got clear. I mean, what I'd put it to you, Mick, it's a ridiculous scenario. If you've got good mile tracks, the likes of Ashburton, Wyndham, they can run the miles over in good times, why start on a bend? I mean, I know we're talking miles, but would you run 2,400 metres at Alexandra Park on a bend and start a mobile there? That's what you're asking the punters to bet on when they're betting over a mile at Addington.
But I do think there's a question about the big question I want to ask everybody out there at home once we've spoken to the man who, shall we say, puts these races together.
Yeah, he certainly does. Brian, for many years, the mile here at Addington was a significant part of the racing fabric. The philosophy behind bringing it back in, particularly around show day.
Well, Greg, I suppose there had been a bit of a need out there to perhaps reinvigorate show day. People had a bit of an impression it was starting to lag, and perhaps it was. A decision was made to, an idea was put on the table about perhaps bringing the free-for-all in as a mile. Hadn't been one here since 1991. Seemed to get a bit of, not universal reaction, but got a lot of good comment, and we were talking about it in May and June that year. We were still talking about it in February this year. So not everybody's cup of tea probably, but couldn't say it hasn't been a failure.
The 2 winners thus far, they've come from barrier 2, the Gold Ace, and of course the second row for Pembroke Benny. What about turnover-wise? How's that sort of stacked up against other years? Because numbers-wise, it's been good.
Well, 2011, people may not remember, but Smoking Up actually dealt to a good field in the free-for-all that year. Turnover off course was 300k. Following year, we introduced the mile, and much to a lot of people's surprise, the turnover actually reached 325,000 that year. Followed this year with another further 15k into the race with, was there a horse that didn't start? Terra de Love didn't start in the race, and we still put 15 more k on it and 340,000 invested on the race, which was significantly higher than any other race on the day, and one of the few races to actually increase its turnover on the day. So the perception of the public out there can't be that bad.
No, exactly. They're putting their money on for sure. The other side to it, there's a couple of things. Breeding-wise, many of these races have been for the fillies and mares.
Well, and on purpose, really, Greg, and also for lesser class mares. Like you've got horses like Laura Megan with a 155 time, Helena Jet 154, Only For You, actually, who drew the outside of the second line, Only For You, went round in 155, I think it was. So 6 of the races of the 12 that we've actually run in the 15-month period have been for lesser class class fillies and mares, and you'd have to say breeders would have to have would be quietly sort of pleased about that, you would think, on the sideline, especially today at the sale ring.
All right, preferential barrier draw, that's played a part too.
It has. It's come in since the 25th of September this year, and there's been 6 races run from the preferential barrier draw, and interesting enough, prior to the preferential barrier draw coming in, 2 horses had won from random draws of 1, and since the pref draw come in, 2 horses have won from 1 as well.
Yeah, all right. So there's been 4 winners from barrier 1. Entertainment factors also played a part, Brian, because you need quick fire racing, and the short course racing allows that.
Oh well, sure, Greg. 14th of February last year, we ran 3 of these miles, and this Saturday night just gone, we ran 2 of them. So that's 5 of the 7. So we haven't exactly flooded the market with miles, and really it's been there with short, a bit of a cry out there for short programs, and so we can't be running long distance 2600 metre standing start races. We've got to have quick fire racing, and mile racing fits into that bill quite nicely, actually. Yeah.
The long-term strategy, well, you haven't really got one, have you? You're not saying either way that the mile's going to be part of the future racing fabric or not?
Oh no, help no, Greg. It's an option that we have, and as you can see, we've sort of used it from periodically over the last 15 months. Sure, the last 2 free-for-alls have been a mile, but that's, we haven't set that in concrete that's going to be the long-term policy of the club, and that's yet to be decided for this current season for 2014.
And arguably, the last race, last Saturday night, was as good a race as we've seen here at Addington Raceway in quite some time.
Oh, help, I'd have to say that, Greg. We had a $50,000 Inter Dominion heat here with 2 of our best horses in the country, and really it was they went round in 3:18 dwaddle, really, and there weren't a bunch of no-names driving the horses behind the winner, and I know he ran the fastest last quarter ever at Addington, but really that's a distant memory compared to the last race when Vice Chairman just took the bull by the horns and just kept going, much to the surprise and delight of a lot of people who are still talking about it.
So nice to catch up with Brian Rabbit there. As we come back to you, Michael, what I liked about it was the fact that he wasn't trying to defend it. That wasn't what it was about. He was just trying to say, hey, there are things we've tried here at Addington Raceway, and good on them for having a decent dig at it. It's only about 1.5% of the total races run at Addington Raceway in a season, so let's be fair, it's not a huge number of races. When you consider that of the 12 races that he's highlighted, 3 favourites, 6 second favourites, so the punters seem to be getting it right. Yeah, sure, barriers 1 and 2 have won 7 of the 12 races, but the novelty factor's clearly there. They're saying with the free-for-all that, yeah, they're not set in concrete, so there's a very good chance that the race distance of that may change.
Well, Grego, first thing first, I don't care if they hold maidens or C2s at Addington over a mile. Like Craig, I just won't bet on them. I don't care less. The New Zealand Free-for-All is a serious horse race. It could potentially be a stallion-making race, but holding that over a mile where a lot of the horses don't have a realistic chance. And we saw that the other day. We saw Sevilla Patrol, Isaiah, who might have been a touch fat, Tiger Tara. These are good horses. They had no chance after that race had started. Sevilla Patrol, I think they just went round for the fun of it. That's a terrible thing to say, but it's true. I agree with Brian, they had the right to do this. We also, if they have the right to do it, have the right to say that we don't want to bet in it. But here's the big question for me, Greg. On a racetrack at Addington or Alexandra Park, there are 3 types of customers. There's the horse people. They are customers because they choose to come along and support that product. There are people who gamble and bet. I think they're the most important people because without them the industry closes. And then there's people who come along for a meal and a drink and a night out. The first 2 bunches of people don't like it, Craig. The horse people hate it. Almost universally, they hate it. They may not tell Addington that, but I don't care. They tell me and they tell Craig. They hate it. The second bunch of people have no confidence in it. They are the punters. They don't have confidence to back horses from the outside, so do they really want to be getting involved? When you can bet in any other type of race, you can bet in Hong Kong, Flemington, Caulfield, where it's an even start. So why bother? And the third bunch, Craig, the people along for a beer and a punt, they don't care. It could be 1,400 metres. They don't care about 151.9. It means nothing to them. So the third bunch of people don't care. The second bunch of people don't like it and lack confidence. And the first bunch of people hate it. So the big question is, why are we still having them? If somebody tells me, Craig, why we're still having them and gives me one good reason, I'll ease up. But until then, I'm just going to stop watching them.
Well, I'm in complete agreement with you, Michael, and that's very rare between you and me. I can quite tell you that.
Let's hope it doesn't happen every week.
It won't. Will be controversial, but I think this is just a no-brainer, Mick. That starting point on a bend, I mean, Willow got away with it last week, but she came in 2 spots from 6 to 4. It'd be interesting if she'd started from 6, would she won that race? Probably would, because she had the class edge on most of them, but I think when you're having a bet in that race, and that's what we're about, we're trying to make $1, the confidence is not there. In a race like a free-for-all, where you're quite correct, Group 1 horses are going round, we don't want to have the advantage to the horses that are drawn 1, 2 or 3, and that's the end of the race once the barrier draws come out. So for me, no, I'm not a big fan of it. They're trying it. Good on them. Would they review it in 12 months? I hope so.